blue. This is the first time on the river for anyone. Underneath it, we have a few stripes here. Those are high water marks. Now, the blue one represents like a high spring. So if the water gets there, just don't worry about it. This is normal. The yellow, start to get worried. We're close to a flood. And then we got the red, which is we have a flood. Everyone panic. So in Winnipeg, we've had 3 major floods, or at least our top 3 floods. Those are 1826, 1950, and 1997. Now, in 1826, the water level, this bridge obviously wasn't here, but if it had been here, we'd have to put our little stripe 10 feet up this pole on top of the bridge there. That's how high the water was in 1826. And if we go and walk through the forks, on the little canopy section in the middle, they're out of the city. And the floodway is a massive ditch that they dug out. You can drive past it, and it fills with water anytime the water levels get too high, and it has protected our city multiple times. In 1997, the water level was just as high, but Winnipeg was pretty much unscathed from that flood. At the time, or not at the time, but in all, the floodway, the building of the floodway, it was the second largest moving of Earth project, right behind the Panama Canal. And here at Waterways Tours and Transit, we say boo to the Panama Canal for reasons which will be explained later. Provincial government works or doesn't work depending on who you ask. And the truth of the building there, looking out to the north. And the Golden Boy was mounted in 1919. It was given to us by the French. The Statue of Liberty was given to the Americans by the French. The French love giving out statues. I don't know why they do that. What's in it for them? What's their plan? I don't know. But it is holding a big bushel of wheat, and it's looking to the north, because the north is where the future of Manitoba lies, with our natural resources and all that land we got up there. As it was being shipped from France to Canada, it was during World War I, so the American Navy commandeered the boat and had to just use the boat for 3 years with this giant gold statue sitting in it. So it sat in a boat and basically served in World War I for several years. Now when it got here, it's been sitting up there since 1919, but they brought it down in 2002 because it was getting a little grimy, and they brought it down to the Manitoba Museum. And I happened to have been working at the museum at the time, so I got to see it real close up every day. And I could reach up and touch its knee. So that gives you a little perspective of the size of that thing. The knee that's like sticking out like this. I could reach up and touch it. So it's pretty big. Next thing I want to tell you about is our boy, Louis Riel. Louis Riel is recognized as the founder of Manitoba, and the very short version of his story is he was up here living and working and governing the Red River Settlement, which was what Winnipeg used to be called. And the Red River Settlement was 80% Métis. So Métis people are a combination of French and Indigenous people. They have their own culture, they have their own language. They are very unique. They're a very unique people, and they're crucial to Winnipeg's history. So Louis Riel's just up here governing the whole place, doing a great job. And then the government of Canada shows up, and they say, oh, hey, nice little community you got here. Here's your new leader. By the way, you're a part of Canada now. And here's your new leader. His name's William McDougall. Don't speak any French to him because he doesn't know what you're saying. Anyways, we'll see you later. Bye. Hope that works out for you. And Louis Riel and his Métis government basically said, how about no? How about we don't do that, because we're kind of good doing it our own way up here. So in fact, why don't you, you're this little William McDougall guy, he can get lost. In fact, he can't even enter here. So do not send anyone else and tell McDougall to get lost. So things got a little tense between Louis Riel and the Canadian government, and there were some people in the Red River Settlement that wanted McDougall to be the leader, and they were loyalists to the Canadian cause, and there was a large series of events. It was a little complicated, but essentially one of them had to be executed by Riel and his government. So that further made things a little tense between the two. But despite all these tensions, Louis Riel was managed to negotiate with the Canadian government the founding of the Manitoba province. So he was the one who set the terms for Manitoba to be a province, and in those terms he said, we're going to be led by the Métis. We're gonna continue doing it our way. And the Canadian government said fine. Louis Riel said fine. Wait, right after that happened, the Canadian government sent an army and drove Louis Riel out of the Red River settlement, never for him to return. So he was exiled from the Red River settlement. During this whole period, he was elected to Parliament 3 times, and he was not allowed to take his seat in Parliament because if he showed up in Ottawa, he would have been arrested. So he never got to come back to the Red River settlement. He moved down to Montana, and there was a little small town in Saskatchewan called Batoche, and Batoche was a similar situation. It was mostly Métis, and they wanted to, they were kind of annoyed with the Canadian government. They wanted to show some resistance to them, and they said, well, who can we get to help lead us and help fix this up? How about that Louis Riel guy? Let's go find him. So they found him, they brought him up to Batoche, and they said, let's do the whole Louis Riel rebellion again. And this time it did not go as well as it went here. There was fighting, there was bloodshed, and at the end of the day, Louis Riel was captured by the Canadian government and executed for treason. So that is Louis Riel. It took 150 some odd years, but just this year he was officially recognized as as Manitoba's first premier. So he is now, only as of this year, recognized by the Manitoba government as our first premier. So that is Louis Riel, and we're going to head to the Red River now. This whole neighborhood is the St. Boniface neighborhood, and it is the largest French-speaking neighborhood outside of Quebec in North America, and that is because of all the Métis people that helped found Winnipeg. We have a very large French-speaking population. Right through the trees over there is a white building with green shutters. That is the St. Boniface Museum. It is the oldest building in Manitoba. It was built in 1846. It has been a nunnery, it has been a hospital, it's been a school, and now it is a museum that you can check out right over there. And then you're about to be able to see St. Boniface Cathedral, which is right in front of us here. And or what is left of St. Boniface Cathedral, because as we all know, it was destroyed in the Great Battle of 1918. No, I'm just kidding. A roofer threw a cigarette at it, and on the roof, and it went up in flames. So they left up the front wall as a reminder to future generations not to smoke cigarettes. It's got that big hole in the front. That used to be a giant stained glass window. And when the fire was burning, it burned so strong that that window exploded, and they found shards of glass on the other side of the river. That's how far it went. In front of us right here, we have 2 bridges. It might look like one, but it's actually 2. There's our footbridge, which is the Esplanade Riel, and the Provencher Bridge, which is for cars behind it. Now, this footbridge has a big old building on it, and it used to be a restaurant. And when it was built, it was the only restaurant. And in one of the most classic Winnipeg moves of all time, nobody would go to it because the parking wasn't good enough. So they shut it down, and now it is an office for a tech company. I don't know where they park, but they seem to be able to get there every day. Anyways, Winnipeg, we can't have nice things. Another interesting thing about this building is its toilet. The toilet, so if you're gonna build a restaurant on top of a bridge over a river, you gotta think about stuff like, where's the toilet gonna go? Where's the sewage gonna go? So there's a pipe that goes in the middle of the bridge there, under the water, and then out to the sewage system. But there's another problem here. The river is frozen half the year. So how do you keep the sewage from not freezing? Well, you gotta build a heating mechanism for the sewage. And anyways, why am I telling you this? I'll tell you. Some people in Winnipeg call it the $1 million toilet because it cost $1 million just to get it up and running. So, and then we're under a bridge right now, but we're gonna come out and get a majestic view of the Manitoba, or the Canadian Human Rights Museum. which I've just been saying is probably one of the greatest architectural marvels in the world. I don't see a lot of other buildings on $10 bills. That's on the $10 bill. And it's a really incredible building. If you haven't been in there yet, just worth the price of admission alone just for the architecture, because the inside is just as interesting as the outside. There's crazy walkways all crisscrossing all over the place. It's really, really neat. And the exhibits are all about about human rights and how far we've come and how far we have yet to go. Now, one thing that I have always wondered about this building is I saw it built. So I was here while it was being built and from the ground up, and then I've always felt like it doesn't seem finished. Like the top there doesn't seem like it's supposed to look like that. Like maybe the blue glass is supposed to go up to the top, or maybe it's supposed to be a little bit more pointy. So I'm like, wow, they must have ran out of money. But it's actually, they did not run out of money. That is intentional. It is supposed to look unfinished because human rights are not finished. We do not have equality for all. And when we do, when every human on earth has equal human rights, they're going to finish this building. So I'll give them another 2 weeks. Is the old Louis Riel statue. And it was in front of the legislative building, just like the new one is. The old statue, since Louis Riel was a traitor, the old statue is meant to depict his struggle. So he's naked and he is in handcuffs, and he doesn't look great. And the sculpture is made very abstract. It's behind the St. Boniface Cathedral now. But people didn't like that one, so they replaced it with the more stately Louis Riel statue that exists at the legislature. Ships would come bringing goods from the north down the Red River, down from Hudson Bay, through Lake Winnipeg, down the Red River, and they'd unload it here and they'd load it onto trains, because again, this was all trains. And then they would take it off to its next destination. Now, it was called the Exchange District because Winnipeg used to be a giant hub for trade, and because everything was moved with trains. So, and just because Winnipeg is in the exact center of the continent, if you were going on a train, you were going to Winnipeg. So we were a huge hub for trade in the early 1900s. And the city fathers were under the impression that by the year 1930, we would have 1 million people and be one of the largest cities in North America. Now, you may have noticed, it is 2024, we don't have 1 million people yet. And what happened there? Well, I'll tell you what happened. The Panama Canal. Boo! The Panama Canal came along, and then suddenly it became cheaper for people in Europe to get things to the west coast of North America by going through the Panama Canal. They no longer had to ride trains all the time and bring their stuff over land to get to the west coast. So people stopped coming to Winnipeg so much as a way of getting to somewhere else. So that is why we never got that 1 million people. And that's also why our legislative building is so large. If you've ever, I recommend going and having a tour there if you're new to the town, or if you're not new to the town, because that building is huge. It's actually 3 times larger than it needs to be. Because when they were building it, they thought these 1 million people were coming to Winnipeg to live, but they never showed up. But you know what? We don't need them. We're fine. That it means muddy waters, but a more accurate translation is actually mixed waters. So, and they call it mixed waters because you got the Red River, which has red clay underneath. It gives the water a bit of a reddish hue. And then we have the Assiniboine River, which actually the water there has a bit of a greenish hue. And if you were to take a helicopter straight up from this spot, or I think you can see it on Google Maps, but you can actually see the 2 colors of the water swirling together right where we're sitting here, right here. So it is a metaphor for the mixing of these 2 waters. It's also a metaphor for the mixing of the 2 cultures. the indigenous and the French culture mixing together to create the Métis people. So we're here at the Forks, we're mixing people together, we're having a good time. And that is the end of the tour as I pull into the harbor here. Appreciate it. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be your tour guide and your captain. And before we get going, there's just a few safety things I need to tell you about. We got life jackets up in the ceiling here. If anything bad happens, we've got a ring buoy right up at the front.